Welcome to the Sustainable Living Podcast. Tips, tools, and tactics for living a heart-centered life that honors Mother Earth and her inhabitants. The information shared on the Sustainable Living Podcast reflects the opinions of host Marian West, Janice Friant, and their guests. Please use your own discretion in research before applying any information to your individual situation. Now, here are your hosts, Marian and Janice.
Hi, everyone. This is Marianne with the Sustainable Living Podcast, and I'm here today with a guest who I'm super excited to be introducing to you guys. She's a female entrepreneur, and she has a long background in environmental education. So I think she has a lot to tell us. And I came across her on Instagram, actually. So social media is a good place to get connected, because she has a product I'm really excited about, and we're going to talk about that today. So I want to welcome Lindsey McCoy to the program. Hi, Lindsey.
Hi.
I want you to tell us about your product first, because that's what got us connected. And I just think that's such a good idea what you're doing. So let's keep people not any longer on the seat of their pants to find out what is this product. Tell us what you do.
Yeah, okay. We'll jump right into it. I, with my sister, founded a company called Plaine Products, Plaine, which is a play on our shared maiden names. And we are all about sustainability. We provide right now shampoo, conditioner, and body wash that are all natural, chemical-free, vegan, and here's the cool part, bottles that are returnable, refillable, and reusable. So they are aluminum bottles. You can order online. The bottle comes to your house. Put the pump on, and you are good to go. And then when your bottle is getting low, you can order a refill or subscribe, and we'll send it automatically. A new aluminum bottle comes to your house, you switch the pump over, and then the empty bottle goes back in the box that the refill came in. There's a label inside, you put it on, and you ship it back to us. And we clean the bottle, sterilize it, and then ship it off to be refilled and reused.
Yeah, that's so cool, because it's so hard to find things in refillable bottles. And we had a store in San Diego which was trying to do refillable, and they went under. And I think having that shipping option is great, because it makes it so much easier. You don't even have to leave home, right?
Best of intentions. If you're anything like me, I set so many things by the door to remember to take them when I go places, and then they live there for months. So I finally got my bags in my car, and I'm finally better about my water bottle. But I knew myself, and I knew that getting a bottle out of the shower and successfully in the car on the day when I was going to make it to the store just was going to be hard to make those stars align. And, I guess you always create the thing that you need. This was something that I was trying to use less plastic in my life. I am not super crafty, so shampoo at home was not a safe option for me. I was terrified of what I'd accidentally do to myself. And so we created this because we wanted it, and we wanted a way for people to be able to get involved and use less plastic in their life.
Cool. So I went on your website, which is actually, it's a very nice website. I really like your layout and everything. And Lindsey actually has a blog on there as well. So there is definitely education going on. But tell us how you got inspired in this plastic-free lifestyle, because, yeah, tell us first.
There's a lot of pieces to the story, I know. My husband is actually from the Bahamas. He was born and raised there. We went to the same tiny college in Tennessee, Swanee, and we actually didn't meet till later, but we know a lot of the same people, and we ended up moving to the Bahamas and lived on a small out island. So you flew into Marsh Harbor, one island, and then you actually took a boat over to where we lived. So in an incredible landscape like that, there are not the amenities that we are lucky to have in the States. There is no a way to throw your trash. I mean, the landfills are not well managed. There is no real recycling. So the consequences of our disposable lifestyle were so much more apparent there. I mean, you saw the plastic everywhere, on the beaches, in the water, on the side of the road, filling the landfills. It's just so much harder to pretend. Here I'm in the States now, and it's so easy. You just put it in the bin, and it just magically disappears, and you hope for the best. But there, that piling up of that disposable culture was just so much more obvious to me. And we were doing a lot of environmental education with this great group, Friends of the Environment, that I was working with, and the kids were helping do cleanups. But you saw the bags full of plastic that they were picking up. And you just, I started to realize there's got to be more that we can do. And, people are definitely making efforts. I love the reusable shopping bags. I love the reusable water bottles. But I felt like in the bathroom, there just weren't a lot of options. And that's where the idea came from, was actually in my shower one day, daydreaming about how I could have shampoo not in a plastic bottle.
Yeah. To me, when I first read that you had lived in the Bahamas, the picture we all have of the Caribbean, it's this beautiful, pristine, beaches and waters, because that's what the tourist pictures look like, right?
Oh, and it is. I mean, and that's almost what makes it worse, is you do have this, incredible water where you can see to the bottom, and then you see plastic there. And there is a beach near where we live called Junk Beach. And because of whatever reason, the confluence of currents, a lot of waste washes up on that beach, and you can go there and it is covered in plastic. I mean, we're so lucky, the beach where we live, the beaches on Ireland, had things washed up, but not in the same amounts that this one particular place did. But you always hate to see plastic, but in such a beautiful place where you can see how that plastic bag in the water looks like a jellyfish, and how a turtle could eat it. Or you can see how the brightly colored bits of, cups and straws and glasses look like something that a bird would pick up and eat. And then you start to read and you see these images of, seabirds that are dying because their stomachs are so full of plastic they can't eat anymore, or turtles that are dying because they've swallowed a plastic bag thinking it's a jellyfish and it's knotted up their intestines. It really gets to you. And I think the thing that, when I read somewhere that every piece of plastic that's ever been made still exists, that just blew me away, because you don't think about it like that.
Right. And when you just see one shopping trip and see how much plastic can still come into your house, even if you don't want any plastic, it makes you realize, I'm a household where I really try to avoid plastic, and it still accumulates. People bring me stuff in plastic.
Yes. It's hard to avoid. It's very hard to avoid. And I say it is an amazing material. I mean, there are things about it that are good. And for cars or things that are going to last, tens of years, of course. But the thing about it that drives me crazy is, when you use something for a few minutes and then throw it away, and it's going to be there for hundreds or thousands of years. That just doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. So I wanted to go back to the ocean. So you already described how it is very obvious when you see a bird or a turtle dead, washing up on the beach, and you might see a plastic ring around their neck, or their stomach is full of plastic and so forth. But the plastic also breaks down. Do you have information on how it affects the fish and the corals and all of that?
There are some amazing people studying this right now. And yes, as you said, the plastic does break down. So often when it's in the ocean, between the wave action, the salt water, the sun, the plastic becomes brittle, and it breaks down into what they're calling microplastic. So often when people talk about these gyres or these groupings of plastic that are in the ocean, the current pushes all this debris into various kind of circular patches, and there's 5 spread out around the globe right now. they imagine kind of floating milk jugs and bottles. And while some of that is there, most of it is these tiny little bits of plastic that are actually kind of under the surface. So until you start, trawling or scooping or getting down into the water, sometimes you wouldn't even know it's there. And what's scary about that is that then fish and small organisms are eating those little bits of plastic, and then larger fish are eating those little fish, and then we're eventually eating those fish that are eating plastic. So it is, both on a daily basis, all of our interactions with plastic and all that we absorb, but then now we're even consuming it. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of coming at us from all directions.
Yeah, and that's really concerning in terms of the effect on our health and stuff. And so maybe we should not say it's breaking down, it's disintegrating in small pieces. Because, breakdown, we think about organic material becoming compost, but plastic doesn't disappear. It just becomes smaller and smaller particles. And then we end up with our hair full of plastic, our body full of plastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy stuff, and the more you read, honestly, the scarier it gets. I think they're still trying to figure out how much plastic is leaching out of the bottles and into the things that we're eating and drinking and consuming. And, I don't think we know enough yet, but I always think better safe than sorry. I think a lot of people already know, try not to freeze things in plastic and try not to microwave things or cook things in plastic. But, anytime there's already concern, why not be safe? Why not try and get away from it when we can?
Right, absolutely. I think there's already plenty of studies which shows that plastic leaches into your food and water when it's stored in it and so forth. But I wanted to ask you, so you're packaging your product in aluminum bottles. And does that leach at all, or is it because there was this thing about aluminum cookware not to use it because it leaches? So is it only leaching when it's heated to a certain amount, or is it produced differently?
So we actually, just to be on the safe side, we have what's called cosmetic grade aluminum bottles, and there actually is a liner. It's a resin liner that is BPA free, PVC free, as inert as we can make it, that is between the product and the aluminum, just to make sure that there is no leaching.
Very good. It's good to know. Yeah, because I used to do Sigerson therapy a while back, and that was really big, that you don't even use aluminum foil or anything like that. So that's very good to know. So I wanted to come back to your product, because one of the things I do in my own effort to be more sustainable is I use all my gray water to water my plants. Now, the ingredients, to me, it looks like there are no salts in there. Am I correct in that? Or
I don't know. I'm not aware of any salts. And actually, I mean, our shampoo is a little unusual in that the main ingredient for most shampoos is water, and ours is aloe.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of is a difference, a huge difference for us right off the bat, and then everything else builds on that main ingredient.
Do you guys manufacture the product yourself, or you have?
We actually don't, and we have been so lucky. So as I mentioned, the idea for the company kind of came from the other end. I mean, it came from an interest in having less plastic and making it easy for other people to have less plastic in their life. So we sort of came at it backwards from, I think, most people in the beauty industry. I did not know enough about this at all when we started. So we were able to find an incredible manufacturer in Florida who started in sunscreen and has expanded into a large line of natural products. And, it took some time to find him. As I mentioned, my sister is doing this with me. She is much, much, much pickier than I am, in a good way, about products and style. And we went through a lot of different companies until we found one that we were comfortable with. These guys do an amazing job. They have a lab, they have chemists on staff, and they were willing to work with us. I mean, there are a lot of people that we talk to that were not even willing to consider filling used bottles. And they, being a natural company, heard us out. We sat down, we talked about it, we talked to their chemists, we talked about all the reactions, and we all got to a place where we were comfortable, that everything was going to be safe, that none of the product was going to be compromised. And they have been so supportive, and they have been incredible to work with. So I feel very lucky to have them, and also very lucky that there's not a vat of shampoo in my garage right now. That I was smart enough not to try and do that, because it is harder than it looks.
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of time people think, oh, going into business is easy, but it really is not, especially when you develop products and there is so much involved inside. And I think that's why a lot of people would even shy away from the refill option, because there's a whole nother step involved inside, right?
There is, and you know what? It makes it more expensive. I'll be honest with you. I mean, the cost of we pay for people to ship the bottles back to us, because again, we want to make it easy. We want to encourage that process. And then we have to pay time, energy for them to be washed, and then we ship them back to be refilled. So that is part of our cost. And, I wanted this product to be as accessible as it could to everybody, but there is a cost to being a responsible corporate citizen. And I hope it's something that more businesses start to take seriously, that it's just not enough to put a product out there in the world. You have to think about its entire life cycle, which is something that we're trying to do.
Yeah, I just today or last night, so I guess it would be kind of today since it was past midnight. I published a podcast with an Australian lady who is doing organic clothing. And so she also talks about that consciousness, to be aware of how the worker is affected by the product. Like everybody, not just the end consumer, but everybody involved in producing it. And your ingredients are all organic.
Yes.
Yeah. And then your product is vegan as well. And so for people which are concerned about cruelty, there is no animal testing done on it.
No, absolutely not. Definitely cruelty-free. And also something that was important to me after living in the Bahamas is that the formula is also biodegradable. So when it goes down the drain, scary things aren't happening either. So yeah, it seemed to me that once we come up with this idea of a sustainable package, we wanted to have a product that was as good as the package was.
Yeah, it's a whole package.
Yeah.
It's not just one element, because sometimes people get really into one element of the whole and then forget everything else. And, part of our mission is to go, no, we have to think about the whole. We can't just think about, let's say, my personal health. I also have to think about how does it affect my neighbor? How does it affect the ocean? And I live close to an ocean, so anything I flush into my sewer system can very likely end up in the ocean, since there are sewer spills all the time, so, or if packaging is left out to fly in the wind, so to speak, like what it would end up on our shores as well. I wanted to go back to the packaging because on your website, you are mentioning how it actually creates jobs. Would you like to talk about that?
I would love to talk about that. I think there has unfortunately become this idea that it's, the economy versus the environment. And I think it's so regrettable that those two are often pitted against each other. Because I don't believe that is the case at all. I think that, when we're talking about reusing bottles, we're using less energy, but it's just as much manpower. So we're not in any way decreasing the amount of jobs that are affected. We're just using less natural resources and less energy. That's good for everybody. And so many environmental things make sense from a financial perspective, from a limited natural resource. I mean, there's only so much in the world that we can take out. So why not reuse what we have? And I hope that we can get to a point where we can change the conversation and not see these two very important things against each other, but that they can work together. This idea of a circular economy and designing things to be reused instead of disposed of, I think will benefit everyone in the long run.
So I loved that circular economy. I thought that was, such a powerful phrase, and some people could use a lot more. It makes so much sense that things just be reused and work together in our circle, so to speak, because it feels like said straight up is just not going to happen. Somewhere down the line we don't have straight up to go anymore.
No, I mean there's only so many natural resources in the world, and unfortunately, the way our system works right now, nobody thinks about the end of life. I mean, we've tried to come up with solutions, recycling, which is good, but unfortunately, with plastic, it kind of only delays the eventual trip to the landfill or to the ocean because the plastic is downcycled and it can only be used so many times, whereas aluminum, glass, just turns right back into itself. So one reason why I think it's a better material. But when you only try and deal with something at the end of its life, it doesn't make any sense. In the 90s, I remember hearing William McDonough speak about this cradle to cradle idea of when you're thinking about something and you're designing it, you have to think about its use, but also at the end of it, and design a good end for it. And until that's done, until we're all doing that, there isn't going to be a solution. I mean, it's only a Band-Aid. So it took us 2 years to come up with this company. I mean, it took a lot of time. It took a lot of effort. But it's because we thought about every step of that cycle and how we could reuse as much as possible all the way through.
Yeah, even your boxes you're shipping in are made out of 100% recycled material.
Yeah, well, it's important, I think, to walk the walk and talk the talk all the way through. I mean, again, why create this amazing environmental product and then stick it in, a plastic bag?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's important, I guess, maybe because I came from the nonprofit world, I really believe that can all work to make the pie bigger. That a rising tide lifts all boats. I think it's important to support and the other environmental companies and people that do check out our Instagram or our social media accounts. I'm often talking about other products, other companies that are also sustainable because we're all in this together. I don't see it as a competition. I don't see it as we need to be out in front. I want us all to work together. I think we're all on the same team.
Absolutely. Reality is it's such a small amount of people which are having such sustainability thinking. So if people which are trying to promote it are fighting each other, then it's not going to happen. We really have to work together to bring that message out to people.
I think that's so true. I mean, we all do have to work together, and our energies can be much better used by helping spread the word instead of fighting about smaller details. I mean, I'm far from perfect. I will be the first to admit. I invented this because I'm not zero waste, and I wanted to use less plastic. So there are things already that I would change about the way that we're doing it, and that we're going to work towards. But I do believe in sustainability steps, and that every step in the right direction is a good thing. Every time we don't use a plastic bottle, we should celebrate instead of feeling bad about the times that we do.
I so agree with you, because I think environmental guilt is like a new thing psychologists and counselors have to deal with. And
no, I do. I agree. I mean, and it's so dangerous when you're trying to promote these projects to not put people into that mindset where they start feeling guilty and they just shut down completely and walk away. I mean, I try and say the great thing about plastic is it's something we can do something about. We can make a different choice. This is one problem that is completely within our control.
Right. To come back to celebrating baby steps, or you are actually, what you did isn't a baby step, it's a huge step.
Thank you.
But like you said, you are now seeing things you might want to change. But if you wouldn't have started, you would know. A lot of times we need to start somewhere, and then we can refine the project as we go, or as a process as we go.
Oh, definitely. And we're getting great feedback. I mean, we've already made some changes. We were going to start with stainless steel, and then we just couldn't get high enough quality that we were comfortable to put the product out there. So we switched to aluminum. I mean, we've already learned so much along the way, and I'm sure we won't, And a year from now, we'll have learned so much more. And I appreciate people that give us feedback and give us ideas. And somebody asked me if we were going to trademark the concept. And I said, no, I hope other people do it. I would love nothing more than to see other people, taking this and running with it.
Absolutely. You were saying earlier, said the product is a little bit more expensive because it's, consciously sourced and worked with and so forth. But it really is not that expensive because you're saying it can last 2 to 4 months, depending on, like with my short hair, it probably would last me a year to have a bottle.
You're good. You're a perfect client. No, you're at least 4 or 5 months easily. But if you're already buying organic natural shampoo, it's actually very competitive. I mean, our bottle is 16 ounces, so it is bigger than most natural organic products. They are usually more kind of 8 to 10 ounce bottles. We looked at, anywhere from around $2 an ounce for a natural product seems to be average. We actually come in under that. But for someone who is currently buying a mainstream shampoo, I think it does seem expensive. And, we really, while we are grateful to the people who are already doing this and who are buying into our process, we also are hoping to convert some other people who aren't. And so for them, I think the price point feels a little high, but I've tried to be extremely transparent about, instead of asking why it's expensive, ask why your shampoo is so cheap. How are they producing a 32-ounce bottle of shampoo for $3? Because it's full of chemicals, because it's full of water,
right?
Because the plastic bottle is 20 cents and it's going to sit in a landfill for 400 years. So there's a cost to things that we're not paying in a lot of ways right now. There's a cost to all of this cheap stuff, and I'm sure that was the conversation with the fashion person that you released this morning, and I'm excited to listen to it because all of these things have a cost. Unfortunately, a lot of them we're just paying down the line now.
I think it's a cost we might not associate with the product, but as our landfills get more and more full and we just don't have space anymore. I know San Diego is trying to be 100% waste free. That's their goal because there's no more landfill space. And trash disposal is going to be more expensive. There are other costs involved with a product we might not associate with using it. When people talk about organic food being more expensive, but then if you think of healthcare costs, it's
right.
things which might not directly relate, but they are in relationship. And so, yeah, definitely. I wanted to ask you more about the process when the bottle comes back to you. So it goes back to the factory which actually fills up or makes a product?
No, it comes back to us first. We're based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. So it comes back, and then, we can actually use an industrial dishwasher that will get the temperature high enough to clean and sterilize it. And then when we have enough, we ship them back to the manufacturer they'll create another small batch and fill the bottles again for us.
Excellent. Yeah, so that's very interesting to know because there's so many steps involved in something like that. It definitely is easier. Fill, give it to a person, and then they throw it away. Done, right? That's the easy step.
That's what's happening right now. I mean, that is definitely the easy way to do it. But it didn't always. I mean, I have this image in my head of the milk containers that used to get dropped off by the milkman and that had your milk in it, and then you'd put out the empty ones the next day. I mean, there was a time when that was the way things worked, and how cool would it be to get back to that, and as much as we can again, because as you were saying, we're filling up our landfills. I mean, this disposable culture is only gonna fly for so long.
Yeah, and it's really a short time that we're in such a disposable culture. I grew up in Germany, and when I was a kid, there were no disposable products. You reused everything. And even now, when you go there, people buy beer and soda and mineral water and everything in bottles, which then get returned to the store and get washed and refilled. And there is no big glass recycle. I mean, they recycle glass, but most of everything can be refilled. And we are definitely not doing that here. So it's just the infrastructure has to be redeveloped.
And the mindset. One of the things I learned when I was doing environmental education is people don't want to harm the environment. They don't, consciously, I mean, in the Bahamas, we loved where we live, but they just they don't know. They don't, either they don't. I had a very, very highly educated person say to me, well, what happens when I throw my trash overboard? And he had just literally never considered what happened. He'd never thought about it. And I said, it doesn't disappear.
Right.
Just because you don't see it, it's still there. And I think just a lot of people, it's so sanitized now, their trash just disappears and they don't think about it. But I think if we can provide, I hope if we provide the options and the education, that people will start to make different choices and will hopefully start to demand different options.
Right. I think too, as things move away from the French and it becomes more mainstream, because it used to be all the hippies were using alternative stuff and they're just, just hippies. They're just out there or whatever. And a middle class American wouldn't have considered it. But I think there are more and more people of all different philosophies and economic status which have become aware that we need to do things differently. And so it seems to be a little bit easier for people to even consider. If somebody does who looks so different from you, for example, then it's harder to wrap your mind around. Kind of, you know what I'm saying?
I do. And no, it does make sense. And, I think also we've tried to come at it for a few different angles. I mean, there's, the chemical-free nature of the product, which pulls in some people, especially, a lot of parents who are concerned about their kids or people that are thinking about having kids that are trying to limit the chemicals that are in their body, which is an important piece. And then on the other side, people who have realized that they don't want to be contributing as much to the disposable culture in our society. So, and I think I've definitely noticed, in my lifetime that environmentalism has become more mainstream in general. I mean, I think, kids are talking about it more in school. I think slowly it is becoming a more just a topic that is a part of the everyday conversation.
Right. And so by offering options which give a satisfying product, like your hair is nice when you use your product. Yes. So you don't have to.
No, I mean, I have tried some other products that were not that experience, and I think it does turn you off. And there is no reason, and in this day and age, why you shouldn't be able to hold any product to a certain standard. And so we are very proud of the fact that your hair is clean and manageable and healthier even using it. And for some people, it is a little bit of a change. I think you get used to that kind of stripped, squeaky feeling from the detergent and the chemicals. Your hair you can almost squeak when you rub your fingers along it. It feels so clean. And it's not exactly like that, but it is healthier and fuller and less likely to break. And you just kind of get used to a sort of a different feel for your hair. I like it.
Good. Excellent. Lindsey, is there something we haven't touched on you would like to share with our audience?
No, I mean, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like I probably have been so free-ranging that I'm sure there are points we haven't followed up on, but I think we've done a good job of covering the topic. I really appreciate your time.
Good. Would you repeat how we can reach you?
Delighted to. So we have a website, Plaine Products, Plaine Products. And then we are also on social media. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. And all of them, we were lucky enough to get Plaine Products. So it matches up in all the places. And we would love to hear from people. We often try and showcase on all of our different sites what we call easy wins for the environment. So on a day you remember to bring your water bottle or your reusable bag, or, I convinced the baker down the street to give me my bread in a paper bag the other day instead of a plastic bag, and said I considered that a win. And so we try and showcase those and talk about small, easy steps that people can do. And as we were kind of saying, celebrate those and feel good about the times that we are able to make a choice that's good for ourselves and good for the planet, instead of feeling bad about all the compromises that we have to make in other areas of our life.
I love that. Thank you so much.
I appreciate the time.
Lindsey made an excellent point. Let's ask more questions. How can you sell this product for such a cheap price? If it comes to food, clothing, personal care products, ask that question. Who is getting paid along the line? What are you putting in there? Excellent point. And I invite you all to take the conversation to our private Facebook group. It's called Sustainable Living Tips, Tools, and Tactics. And I really would love to have an in-depth discussion. What are you finding helpful? What products, what tips, what tactics are you using to show up in a more sustainable way in our world? The idea of celebrating small wins. So come on over and share your small win, and big ones too if you have them. But small ones makes a difference, I believe. Small step, baby steps. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you. Bye for now. Take good care.